Okay, according to our friends at YouTube, this worked the first time. We shall see. How are we doing? There we go. Now it's working. Spectacular. All right. Let me just do a little bit of stuff here. Pop out the chat so I can see more of it. I hope you guys are all having a good day. All right. Good morning. This was kind of a last-minute thing. So last night, I was at a 5-year reunion for a movie that I was in. It was filmed around here. It was a local indie movie, and we were at this theater, and there was a premiere and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So a lot of people hadn't seen it in a long time. But Sam, Painter Sam, was also in this movie. He was in the movie actually before, or more than I was. And though we had seen each other, obviously, a bunch at AdeptiCon last week, we were talking again some more and stuff. And then I was like, I should really just do a live show tomorrow because I didn't want to just skip one. So, yeah, I decided to do a live show today. And then we'll do another one next week because then it'll get us back into the normal schedule. The reason I want to stay in the normal schedule is because going forward, if I stay in the normal schedule, then we will skip over when I'm gone at Gen Con, so there won't be a missed week, because the week in between I'll be at Gen Con, so that'll be fine, because I'm sure that the internet at Gen Con is going to be just as bad as it was at AdeptiCon. And it's not AdeptiCon's fault, it's not even really the hotel's fault, it's the fault of 1,000 nerds all trying to constantly do stuff on the internet in the same hotel at the same time. Nerds like myself, don't get me wrong. So, yeah. But, so anyway, yeah. The other thing is that with the current schedule being the way it is, then there will be a live chat on Sunday that will fall during the Tabletop Minions Expo, TMX, which is coming up June 3rd and 4th. So June 4th, that will be also a live show, but it'll be during the convention. However, I know that at the university where the convention's being held here in town, there's really good internet because it's university. That's how it works. So my plan is to do actually the live show on that Sunday morning, June 4th, with a live audience. Anybody who wants to show up who's already at the convention anyway will be able to show out and hang up. And then, so that's the plan. So I didn't want to screw up that schedule by just moving everything one because it was gonna gibber everything all up. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Yeah, the movie, for those of you that asked, it's a movie called Dead Weight, and actually it's available on Amazon Prime now. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. Dead Weight. It's kind of a zombie movie, but not really. It's a horror movie about a domestic terrorist attack that infects a whole bunch of people, and then they kind of turn into zombies. That's not the point of the movie at all. The point of the movie is about the survivors. It's about a guy named Charlie trying to get to his girlfriend. He's in Toledo and she's in Minneapolis, and they're trying to meet in the middle during all of this going on. You don't really ever see any of the zombies or anything like that, so don't expect that. But there's a lot of horror just amongst the things that the people do to each other. So it was a fun movie. It's really small indie. It's about 90 minutes. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it on there. It's called Dead Weight. It's from 2012. So we had our, what do you call it, like a 5-year anniversary screening of it last night, and then went out to a couple of places after that, and then went to a show because some of the people in that band were also in the movie, and so I'm a little hoarse this morning because, you know, you're at this show and there's music going on and you're trying to get, talk to each other, but so there's that. Anyway, I think we're all caught up. I hope so. So good morning to everybody from all over the place: Northern Germany, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Glasgow, Chicago, Czech Republic, Sydney, Chicago again, Derbyshire. I'm maybe pronouncing that incorrectly. Spain, I think I correct. Well, for American, I pronounce that correctly. What else have we got? Finland. I'm going to just move this microphone a bit so it's a bit closer. There we go. Bavaria, Perth. Ron asks, have you heard of PAX Unplugged being held in Philly in November? Thoughts? Yes, I have heard of it, actually. I don't remember where I heard of it, but right after they announced it, I heard of it. And I might be going for work, but I might not. Probably not this year, but potentially. So we'll see how it goes. It'd be interesting. I've never been to Philly. I have Indeed, Kevin. Yes, Adam is a pony because I'm a little horse. Yeah, so I'm interested. I know that they've always been interested. I was at PAX, a regular PAX, the one in Seattle, back in 2008. And it was predominantly video games, obviously, but they did have a little bit of tabletop stuff. And in the years since then, they've tried to expand it and expand it and expand it. And now they've decided to just make just an entire PAX that's just about tabletop gaming. And evidently, Tycho, of the two of them, Gabe and Tycho, recently in a podcast was like, basically he wants to make sure it really works and it really goes off. And from what I understand, he's saying, we'll do a bunch of them all over the country if we have to. Like right now they're just doing the one in Philly, but he's like, we'll expand it. We'll do it. So that's interesting. I think it's interesting for people like Gen Con, you know what I mean, who've kind of got to some degree, kind of the lockdown on, those types of conventions. But yeah, so yeah, no, it's interesting. And I've been kicking around the idea of potentially going. We talked about maybe me going for work, but we'll see how that goes. Let me see, Minneapolis and California and Bulgaria. Jose asks about AdeptiCon booty. Yes, I came back with so much stuff. Good golly. Yeah, I really, really did. So I'm going to do a video about AdeptiCon booty, as I generally do, but I'm not going to be putting all of it in there because that video would be very, very, very long. And I came back with a ton of stuff. I got the VIG, the Very Important Gamer swag bag set up, as part of my badge, which was great. And so there was a ton of stuff. So for those of you that don't know, this year, if you even just got like a regular swag bag, you got a copy of Rune Wars, which is a new game from Fantasy Flight Games. It's a miniatures game, an unpainted miniatures game. And it's not out yet. I mean, it's a $100 game retail when it comes out. You got it in your bag, and it's not out until like the 18th, I think. It's somewhere. It's over here. I can't quite get at it. But yeah, it's a humongous box. Comes with 2 forces in it, like the humans and the undead. And I really wanted to get a demo of it while I was at AdeptiCon. But so did everybody else. So just didn't get a chance to, didn't get the time. Every time I stopped by the booth, the demo areas were all taken up. So, but yeah, it was a smart move, I think, on Fantasy Flight to just say, you know what, we're just going to give it away at AdeptiCon because that's the perfect audience. And they cranked out. Yeah, I saw lots of people just taking it apart and playing it unpainted, and on free tables and stuff like that. So. Yeah, it was is interesting. I don't know if it's going to be my thing really because it's very rank and flank, and by that I mean you move the units in like blocks, like squares, not squares, rectangles really, kind of like the old Warhammer Fantasy. Excuse me, but the models do look kind of cool. They're not GW level models, but they're pretty good. They're nice looking. The plastic is maybe not as stiff, and there's not as much building and gluing and stuff like that, so there's a benefit there. But because of it, the material is a little softer than like the plastic that you get with GW stuff. So it's maybe you might have a little bit of a bendy sword syndrome, that kind of thing here and there. But yeah, definitely. So let's see here. VJ Morph says, what do you think of the new Shadow War Armageddon rules? I am super stoked for Shadow War Armageddon. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to, because the game comes out next week. Now, it's all sold out. If you wanted to buy it from their website, it wasn't going to happen. It was sold out almost instantly. We need, so I'm hopefully, and I should be, my local store, my local independent game store ordered like 7 copies. So I'm going to hopefully get one next week. I'm really looking forward to it. The terrain looks amazing, and the rules are kind of fun. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, we sat at the shop a little bit yesterday afternoon and kind of poured over. The one thing they did release yesterday when they released the pre-order was a document that has, it's a free PDF on the website that has the army lists for everything, almost everything, except for Space Marines, Orcs, and Imperial Guard. Those will come in the main rules. But if you wanted Grey Knights or Eldar or Dark Eldar or Tau or Skitarii or Genestealer cults or all these other things, the rules for that, or not the rules, but the information, the lists, the stat lines, all that jazz were in that document. So we were poring over those, not understanding all of it because we don't have the rules yet, but we were like trying to figure out what we're going to do and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Someone asked if I was going to Gen Con. Yes, I am going to Gen Con. It's in mid-August or whenever it is. I will be there all 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Well, technically I think we're getting there Wednesday. So I'll be there a long time. Yeah, looking forward to it though. Let's see here. What else have we got? Morning from Swindon. Shadow War sold out even before I woke up yesterday. Yeah, it sold out really quick. Now, here's the deal from what I understand. So it sold out. Okay, great. Well, the thing is that they're going to release the rules as I believe, a downloadable, like a digital document, kind of like they did with Kill Team. If you bought Kill Team, you got a printed version of the rules in there. But you could also just go on to the iBook store on your, iPad or whatever, or you could go onto the Google Play store on your Android pad or whatever, and you could buy a digital download of the rules. From what I understand, this rules book is going to be like 120 pages. Not a lot of it, but a good deal of it is fluff. But so if you still want to play with the models, because that's the thing, you don't need the models that are in the box. Because they're just, scouts and orcs. And then the terrain, you don't really need that terrain. It's super cool terrain, but they're going to sell it separately. So they're going to sell the book separately. They're going to sell all that stuff separately. I watched the bat rep that happened I posted about it yesterday, I think. There was a bat rep that Mini Wargaming got because they got a pre-release copy of it. And so they basically just played with the terrain they already have, all the stuff that they already do, and it worked out great. So you don't need to use anything that's in the box particularly. You just need the rules booklet and then figures, and it uses the same templates as regular 40K, so you've got the little blast and the large blast and all that jazz. So yeah, you can totally do it. It's a bummer that it sold out so quickly, but really, if you sit down and look at it, because I was looking at White Dwarf. Oh, I've got a copy of White Dwarf down here. So if you're looking in the most recent copy of White Dwarf, they list, everything as far as the prices for, where is it now? They list all the prices for the pieces of terrain separately. Here we go. So this is the Sector Mechanicus, right? So there's part of the terrain, and that piece is $50 American. And then there's this part over here, which is called the Galvanic Magnavent. I don't know who comes up with these names. That part's $75. And then there's this part over here, which is called the Ferrotronic Furnace, and that part's $50. So that's $175 worth of terrain. But if you buy the Shadow War Armageddon set, that's $150. So it's a good cost savings, which is why I understand that it sold out very quickly. I don't know where to put this. Over here. So anyway, it's going to be kind of interesting. Did anything happen with the Caradron Overlords at AdeptiCon? There were none that they showed off at AdeptiCon. They didn't really talk about them too much either. They talked a little bit more about 8th edition 40K. Doors are closing. They talked a little bit about 8th edition 40K and some things that they were planning on doing with it, but not a lot. And then they basically talked about Shadow War stuff, and they talked a lot about Shadespire, which is the new game from. Basically, it's an Age of Sigmar type of game, but it's a little bit more competitive. It's a little bit more. You have like maybe 4 guys per side. And it's on a board. It's sort of a gateway game that they're going to be doing, but it's not coming out till like 4th quarter of the year. So yeah. So let's see here. What else have we got? There's a lot of chat going on. That's cool. I'm sorry that I'm missing a bunch of it. David says Shadow War sold out less than a minute after I got the email. Yeah, like I got an email, and I knew I was already hopefully getting a copy from my local store, but I just wanted to check it out, and I went and clicked, and like then, yeah, it was already sold out in America. So, yeah. Let's see here. Will of the Way says, realistically, they are definitely going to Sigmarize Mordheim if they redo it. Warhammer Fantasy Battles is gone. There is only Sigmar now. To some degree, yeah, I think. I mean, it'll be interesting. I don't know what they plan on doing, or if they plan on doing Mordheim, I mean, right away. Obviously they did the Blood Bowl stuff, and now they're doing this Shadow War Armageddon, which is basically Necromunda, but they've changed things. That's not, gangs and all that stuff, which I understand. So, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. What else have we got here? SC Far says, I got to play it a little early. The rules are almost identical to Necromunda, but simplified. They're more friendly, a lot harder to lose fighters, and fail ammo rolls, etc. Yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of information. That, there's about a half an hour bat rep on Mini Wargaming. I linked to it on Facebook yesterday, and it's really kind of nice. I mean, it was neat to see the way that the stuff that goes and everything like that. So. Oh, my goodness. What else have we got? Thank you for doing these discussions. They are great, and you are very informative and chill. Well, thank you, Jose. I appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy doing them. Excuse me. Sometimes my voice is a little screwy because it's so early in the morning for me, but, I think that this kind of helps me not do a podcast, frankly. Like, I would like to do a podcast. I like to listen to podcasts while I paint. This is kind of like a podcast. I mean, if you're sitting and painting or hobbying or building right now, you don't need to see me generally, so you could just have it on and be listening. Every once in a while, maybe I'm showing you something on the other camera or whatever. I'm not going to be today because I'm just talking about AdeptiCon, but I might show you something, and then you could stop and look at it for a second, which you can't really do with a regular podcast. But, yeah, I thought that it would be a good idea to kind of do this. Plus, it's harder with a podcast, in my mind, to do this whole chat thing and be able to respond to people's answers and questions and things like that. So, yeah, I think it works out well. And people seem to generally like it, so that's cool, too. Let's see here. What else have we got? So there's a lot of talk about things going on at AdeptiCon. Alexander says, hey, Adam, have you seen the newish sculpts from Knight Models for the Harry Potter miniatures game? I'm no Harry Potter fan, but the sculpts are incredible. I haven't seen the sculpts in person. I saw some pictures either of sculpts or maybe they were just renders, like 3D renders. But it was amazing to kind of see how much you could just like look at, like, because they were unpainted, the ones that I saw, if I remember correctly, where you just look at it and go, oh yeah, that kind of looks like what's her name in the movies there, or that looks like the redheaded kid, even though it's not painted. But I mean, like that sort of 3D modeling stuff can get, especially if it's coming from original, like actual scans of like, so many Hollywood movies now, they're scanning the whole actor's body because they're going to need to make a 3D version of them or a CG version of them for some reason. And so they have those files, and then down the road they can use them to make a miniatures game or something. So that's kind of fun. Lorenzo says, what do you think of the upcoming Rune Wars miniatures game? It looks quite cool. Well, as I was just saying a little while ago, everybody who got a swag bag at AdeptiCon got a free copy of it. So it's sitting over there. I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I'm going to open it on camera, like for a video, maybe in the booty video. Maybe I'll do something later. I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to be my cup of tea because, like I said, it's a rank and flank game. You're moving groups of units on those rectangular trays. But I'll give it a look, certainly, especially since I got a copy of it kind of for free. I mean, not really. You have to pay for the swag bag, but it was like the normal badge for Adepticon is $50. Or sorry, $30 with no swag bag. That's a new thing they did this year. For $50, you get a swag bag. So everybody who got a swag bag for basically $20 extra, got a $100 game. So, plus a bunch of other stuff as well. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. What else have we got here? Well, let's see. Adam, I'm getting some friends back into 40k via Kill Team. Is it worth everyone learning the 7th edition rules, or just wait for 8th edition to play? Most of them, like me, haven't played 40k in 10 to 15 years. That's a good question, and I'm wondering if that's why Kill Team, the box set's no longer on the store. You can still buy the digital download, but the box set comes with the small version of the 7th edition rules, which is probably why they're not putting the box set on the store anymore, because they don't want to send you a copy of the 7th edition rules if the 8th edition's coming fast on its heels. Honestly, I would probably tell you in that situation, get everybody to start building, get everybody to start painting, because by the time that they get even that small force done, unless they're old pros, probably by that point 8th edition might be out, and then you should be able to start playing 8th edition with Kill Team if you want to. On the other hand, if you want to, take a look at Shadow Wars. Even though you probably won't be able to get a copy with all of the terrain and the whole deal, you'll still be able to buy that download, and then you'll be able to play these kind of small, kind of skirmishy games with Necromunda rules, which are basically kind of 2nd edition rules, which, from what we're hearing, is kind of a primer for bits and pieces of where 8th edition is going to be going. So that's probably my best piece of advice on that situation for you. Hey, Adam, what are your thoughts on the crystal brush at Adepticon? I saw a few photos today. Yeah. The crystal brush was some amazing stuff. Our friend Sam, Painter Sam, heck of a Tau salesman, he won a gold in, I want to say, he won a gold in unit. So there's different categories. So there's unit, and he won a gold in that. He's got 3 of the Age of Sigmar orcs in there. There's like the big mega boss guy, and there's the guy who's like a shaman. So if you've watched the video, the most recent video that he did talking about object source lighting, he was painting this orc, which is the orc that was one of the 3 orcs that was in the group that ended up winning him gold at Adepticon. And then he also did a piece that he won a silver for, which was Archaon, the huge, giant, 3-headed dragon guy with the guy riding on and all that stuff, which if you've watched Sam's video on my channel about how to make lava bases, Archaon, that particular version, is in that video. So those 2 pieces that he's painted on this very channel both ended up winning stuff at Adepticon. One in the large creature, or I think it's called monster creature vehicle, something like that, like big stuff. And then the other one is unit. So, but it's amazing to watch this, just to look at that stuff. I mean, the pictures are cool, don't get me wrong, but when you're there and you're looking at them like this far away, like a foot away, right through a piece of plexiglass, I'm just like, wow, they are amazing. They really are. Yeah. Let's see here. Siri says, do you still photograph a lot? I don't do as much as I used to. I do a lot more video these days. But I do some photography from time to time. Lately, honestly, a lot of my photography has been taking pictures of miniatures. So there's that. But I like to take pictures of people. I'm not like a landscape guy or whatever, but I haven't done a ton of it lately. I do enjoy it, though. The job that I had previous to this, I did end up doing it from time to time for like business stuff. There were times when I would need to take a bunch of pictures of commercial stuff, like things in a factory where there's lots of sparks, those are always fun to take. So yeah. What else have we got here? Did Sam Lenz enter any paint comps at the con? Yeah, he did. He did the, like I said, he got into the crystal brush, and he entered 3 pieces, and he won a gold and a silver. The 3rd piece, I don't know that it placed. I think it was one of the Primarchs. Perturbo? I think it was Perturbo. So yeah. What else have we got here? 8th edition looks quite a bit like AOS, so I might be enticed by how great the models look. I love the Imperial Guard tanks too, or whatever they're called now. Yeah, they're called Astra Militarum, something like that. And I've always kind of wanted to paint one of those tanks too. I don't know why. The Lehman Russes are just goofy looking. They're like real small and stubby, but I've always liked them. But I've never had a reason to, so I never have. So, And I don't think that 8th edition is going to be Age of Sigmar. I mean, people still are saying it. I mean, for it to be Age of Sigmar, honestly, they would have to have the rules be for free and then have the War Scrolls, or whatever they call them, also be for free. And I don't see them doing that with 40K. We'll see, but there's definitely going to be some changes made. And if anything, it sounds more and more like some of these changes in the rules are going to be heading a little bit more towards the way it was back in 2nd edition. Which, if they go completely full on 2nd edition, that's going to be very weird, because 2nd edition is not good for big battles. If you have an 1850 list, and what we currently know of as an 1850 point list, that would take all day in 2nd edition rules. For a game like Shadow War, which is using it, that's cool, because you're basically running at most 20 models if you are running orcs. If you run Grey Knights, it says right in the little listing for Grey Knight information that the maximum amount of models you can have is 5 in your entire army. So, those rules work a lot better for very small armies. But if you were to run a big, huge list, like 1850, 2,000 points with the old 2nd edition rules, yeah, you'd like literally all day. You would start at 8 in the morning and play till 10 at night or something like that. It would just take forever. So I don't think they're going to go that direction, but they are pulling, it seems as if they're pulling some parts out of 2nd edition to kind of put into 8th, little bits and pieces here and there. Do you think 8th edition rules will also affect Horus Heresy? I'm assuming you mean like the 30K game. I don't think so. I get the feeling that 30K will probably stay the way it is. But, I mean, they haven't said anything, but I get the feeling, because really it makes sense if people don't want to go on to 8th edition because they don't like the new changes to the rules, or they just don't like change, or whatever the deal is, then you could be like, well, you could still play, 30K, because it's basically kind of 7th edition, but with some modifications to a degree. So that might be a good, business plan for them to say, look, we've got all these different options. You want to play something small? Shadow War. You want to play something bigger? 8th edition. You want to play something that was not like 8th edition, but is like the old, then go, you can do 30K. It makes kind of sense. Lionheart says, you Americans are lucky with all of your conventions. We only have one, and it's in London, so I've got to travel half the country to get there. That's true. To be fair, it's kind of a smaller country, so there's that. If I have to travel half the country, it takes me, well, let's see. Depends on which direction you go. If you go north to south, it would take, to go from like the very north to the middle of the country, it would probably take me about 14 hours. If I went the long way across, it would take, by car, probably about 18 to 20 hours. So, yeah, it's a long... But there are tons of conventions, and specifically just even in the Midwest. And I think that's just because there's a lot of gaming going on in the Midwest because snow, a good portion of the year. So you're not outside doing cool stuff or whatever. So yeah. But yeah, I've heard of Salute. I would like to try that out someday. I have to admit, the thing about Salute that kind of turns me off a little bit is that it is just a one-day thing. It's like just Saturday, from what I understand, unless they've finally started to expand it. Like, I'm used to going to conventions, like local conventions that are usually Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then bigger conventions like Gen Con and AdeptiCon that are 4 days. Especially if you're going to have to travel. If you have to travel a good long ways for a convention that only lasts a day, to me that seems like, I don't know, you know what I mean? So yeah. VJ Morph says, Adam, they're going to do apps for 8th edition. It was confirmed in some interview thing that was posted from AdeptiCon. I don't know what you mean by apps. Oh, I see, for the rules. And well, that's interesting. I mean, because I wasn't... The big announcement thing that they did at AdeptiCon, where they talked about a lot of stuff, and they showed off Shadespire and all that jazz, was on Wednesday night, and I was still here at home. I didn't go until early Thursday morning. We drove down. I only live about 3 hours north by car of Adepticon, so it's not too bad. But... yeah, I don't know. It's that'd be interesting. That's what Privateer Press does. Privateer Press now has pretty much moved to they're not going to produce the cards pretty much, that used to come with all the figures. They're just going to use the app. And from what I understand, the app is really nice. The Privateer Press does. I like the Age of Sigmar app just fine. I think it works really well. So yeah, I think it makes sense. That's a good way to go. Let's see, what else have we got here? My brother and I are getting into Age of Sigmar, and I have some background in painting, but my brother doesn't. Any suggestions on how I should guide him through this? Yes. What I would do is the two of you should try to get together and paint at the same time. What it'll do is it'll help you to kind of motivate each other to keep painting. Plus, you can show him things and say, "Look, this is how this works," and this is, and that kind of stuff, and it's happening right at the same time. The motivation's key, and the what do you call it? The ability to show the person. If you obviously have him do a lot of research if he wants to, and do things. Look, because YouTube is obviously a great place to learn all this stuff. But also just being able to show a person up close, like, this is how you do this is how you do that, this is how a wash works, things like that. This is how dry brushing works. It just makes it instantly like in your head, and it works out really well. So, yeah, that's really cool. What else have we got here? Tim Mears says, we love to complain in the UK about traveling for half an hour. Yeah, I suppose. Well, I'd have to drive a half hour to work. So, Chandler says, Spotted Cow is the best reason to live in Wisconsin. Lake Geneva. What's up? Spotted Cow is a lovely beer, and you can pretty much only get it around here. I actually had one last night, as a matter of fact. The movie theater sells beer that we had our premiere in, so I had one, and it was tasty. I don't usually drink beer too much, but it was good. Henry asks, do you know when the Salute is? It's coming up, I think. I don't know when it is, though, but it is coming up from what I understand. I tell you to do a Google search. I would say just do a Google search on Salute Wargaming UK or something like that. You'll probably find it. Like, if you just do a search for Salute, who knows what you'll find. But if you put in the word Wargaming with it, too, it'll probably help. If Matt was here, then he would probably find it for you and put a link in there. But I neglected to tell him that I was going to, pull this surprise episode this morning. So he is hopefully sleeping and having a good Sunday morning. SC Farr says, I used Grey Knights when I played Armageddon. The entire force was 3 models. Yeah, like I said, when I was looking through the rules yesterday, not the Armageddon rules, but the rules for the other armies that will be allowed in Armageddon, they say that the models for Grey Knights, you can the list maximum is 5 and the minimum is 3. So, not a lot, but they're Grey Knights. You shouldn't have a ton of them. I think that Orcs can go up to 20. There's a group that can go up to 15. I think Chaos can go up to 15 because Chaos Cultists. But most of the lists go up to only 10. Hey, Adam, I just bought some MDF scenery for our Necromunda campaign. Any tips on how to best paint it? Rattle cans, I'm guessing? Okay, so I would tell you to go to... There's a website called Death Ray Designs. It's owned by a guy named Austin. He's a good guy. Death Ray Designs makes MDF terrain. And it's good stuff. The reason I tell you to go there, even though you've already bought some terrain, is that he has a blog post or something. He's got a mention on there about what the best primer to use is for the MDF. The other option is you could go... I did a video last year about MDF terrain, and in it, I actually painted up and showed off some post-apocalyptic stuff from Death Ray Designs, and I talked about what primer is the best. It's a specific type of filler primer. I don't know if it's Krylon or Rust-Oleum, but it's a specific gray primer, and what it does is it helps to kind of soak into the MDF a little bit and seal it, because if you paint acrylic paints directly onto MDF, the MDF will soak it up very frequently like a sponge, and then it will look like you didn't put a lot of paint on at all, and you have to do coat after coat after coat. Whereas if you hit it first with this primer, this specific type of primer that sort of fills it in a bit, according to Austin, that's the best stuff. And since he, is a manufacturer that makes the stuff, not the paint, but the MDF, he knows, I would hope, at least more than I do. So yeah, check that out. Either check out their website or check out the video I did last year about MDF terrain on the channel. Because in that, I remember, I can't remember if it's Rust-Oleum or Krylon and exactly, but I think it has the word filler in the name for the type of primer to use. Works out pretty well. What else have we got? There was a lot of talk about the sketch-style painting session at AdeptiCon. Did you attend or hear about it? I didn't. I heard about it, not at AdeptiCon, but I read about it when I was looking to sign up for events myself, for seminars and stuff. I didn't see any of the results from it, so I don't know a lot about it. It sounds vaguely interesting. If I have to guess, I'm going to say it sounds a little bit like, I don't know, like if you guys have ever played any of the Borderlands video games, how everything kind of looks a little, not cartoony, but like drawn, you know what I mean? That's interesting. The only seminar I took this year was a great seminar by one of the guys from Massive Voodoo, which is a website that kind of aims a lot more towards higher end painter people. Like it's tutorials for not people like generally like you and me, but people like Sam. And the guy's name is Raphael Piku or Pika. I don't remember. He's German and super nice guy, and taught us about converting. So I thought it was going to be a class more about here's how you convert these models into this model, or, you know, like just, but, and it was a little bit of that, but it was also a little bit more about sculpting. And so he was talking about, you know, like how to use green stuff. He doesn't really like green stuff. He prefers something called Magic Sculpt, which is hard to find. I went on Amazon, actually. Where's that box? I think Yep. So this is the stuff. It's called Magic Sculpt, and it's a two-part. Comes in these little tubs like that. Magic Sculpt. This one's the resin, and this one's the hardener. I'm trying to get it in the camera here, and it's the same kind of thing like green stuff, where you take equal halves and you squish it together, and then it turns into a putty, and then it's you do things with it, and then it hardens up. Well, the trick is that this stuff, Magic Sculpt, is water soluble before it dries. So what that means is that you can take it and put it onto something, right? You put it onto your model you're working on, and now you want to smooth it out, like the edges and the transitions and all that kind of stuff. So you can take like a nice big, like thick kind of brush, something like a fat brush, not like a wide brush, but like a good size head on it, that you're probably not going to paint with. You're going to use it probably just for this. Get it nice and wet, and then you can draw it along the surface of this stuff, and you can, like he added a gut onto this big fantasy ogre to give him an even bigger tummy, and he could just smooth it right in, and it was really cool. It worked out really nicely. But then once it dries, then it's you can sand it, you can file it, you can carve it. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. His class was super interesting and really opened my eyes to a lot of different things, and it's probably the best seminar that I've had at AdeptiCon. I really liked it. Yeah, I'd never heard of that stuff until that's like a pound. It's 2 8-ounce tubs, and I think it cost, I got it on Amazon. I want to say it was $23 or something like that, and it was free shipping, so that was not too bad. But yeah, it was really interesting. What else have we got here? Citadel paint pots could be worse. The screw top bottles look great, but they're the worst for drying out, getting hard to open. It's been a really long time since anybody has really liked Citadel paint pots. So, I was just talking to a guy at the shop yesterday. He asked me, because they've got the set of the Citadel airbrush paints at the shop. He's got like a box, it's $75 or I don't know, maybe 20 paints in there, maybe less. And guy was asking me about it. He's like, what do you think of these? Have you tried them? I'm like, I haven't, because they come in normal paint pots. Like, how am I supposed to pour this into my airbrush? Any airbrush paint, every other airbrush paint I've ever seen comes in a dropper bottle. So you can go drop, and get 3 or 4 drops in there and then do some airbrushing. But this comes in the normal, regular GW, paint pot, which is, I think, a terrible way. Because you're going to pour it on your leg or whatever. You're eventually going to be, and just get it everywhere. So there's plenty of people out there who are like, oh, well, I'll just take all the paint out of the pot and put it into a dropper bottle myself. And I'm like, but why are you paying so much money then for that if you have to do half the work, So that's why I haven't used any of their airbrush paints. I hear they're okay, but I'm going to stick generally with Vallejo, because I really like those. Yeah, I wish they would get their pots thing figured out. They've been doing good things, obviously, with the company in the last 18 months or so. And I would love it if they would eventually figure out a good way to make paint pots that everybody didn't hate. So, that's good. What else have we got here? Dropper bottles for life. You are right, Mr. Mexicola. I agree. Trianus. Have you seen the recent announcement for Citadel Water? Isn't that being a bit greedy? I saw some headlines about it. And if you saw it yesterday, remember that yesterday was the 1st of April. So that is, I'm pretty sure that's an April Fool's joke. I don't think that they're actually selling Citadel branded water. I think that's an April Fool's joke. I didn't watch the video because I kind of hate April Fools, but when I saw the headline and all that stuff and saw people posting about it, I was like, that smells like an April Fool's joke. So I didn't, so I didn't bite. Yeah, that's pretty sure. And several other people are saying it's an April Fool's joke as well. Yeah. VJ Morph has posted to Spiky Bits, or a link from Spiky Bits. End of Codex Books, GW's private Adepticon QA reveals more on 8th. Yeah, I wish I could have been there on Wednesday night. That would have been kind of cool. I didn't realize they were doing it. So, but yeah, I had a meeting on Saturday night with Eddie, who's one of their community guys, one of their head community guys, I think. If you watch them on Twitch, especially if you watch them at Adepticon on Twitch, Eddie was in most of he was one of the commentators, on most of the things that they were doing during Twitch. He's the guy with the glasses. And so he and I had a meeting after they got off the air on Saturday night and talked about some things. And he was super nice. And so hopefully I'll be able to, I don't know, like, maybe they'll, I don't know. We're going to see, but trying to do some stuff together, or at least, they're trying to reach out more to the community. For years, they just completely ignored the internet. Now they're trying to reach out more. The reason that Mini Wargaming already has like a pre-release copy of Shadow War, so that they could actually do that bat rep. That's because they've started working with, Games Workshop has started working with websites and blogs and vlogs and all this kind of jazz. So I just basically kind of wanted to talk to him about that kind of stuff and maybe get on that so that I could maybe give you guys pre-release stuff down the road. We'll see how it goes. I may have to I'm assuming I'd have to sign an NDA or something like that because embargo dates, things like that. I'm sure that they sent that copy of Shadow War to Mini Wargaming like before the yesterday, but the video couldn't go up until the 1st of April because that's when the pre-release, or the pre-order went up or whatever. But that kind of stuff, I think I'm hopefully going to be able to start doing a little bit with them. And I would like to be able to do it with any kind of companies to show you guys stuff kind of ahead of time or whatever, to some degree. Things that I'm interested in, things that I think you guys will be interested in. I don't want to just, become an external marketing arm for a bunch of different companies, but I think if it's stuff that you and I would be interested in, then I kind of want to do that. And Lord knows, I want to. I want to play Shadow. I want to be playing Shadow War right now, as a matter of fact. But got to wait at least a week. So, do you have any tips on brushes and keeping them clean? I'm having trouble keeping clean lines on Tau symbols. Evil Lizard, I am terrible with my brushes, like really bad, really, really, really bad. And I've had lots of people asking me about brush care, and I want to make a video about it, but I am honestly going to have to learn it myself first, because I'm just, like, I own brush soap. I don't completely understand how to use it, so I need to do a bunch of research, but then I do want to make a video about it, just because I've had so many people ask. And, if you end up buying, see, the thing is, I don't buy good brushes. I buy okay brushes. The people that go out there and spend $20 on a brush for like a really nice like Winsor & Newton or whatever, that kind of stuff, they need to clean those brushes because otherwise they're going to be going through them a lot. I spend $4 on a brush and then I beat it to death and use it and use it and use it and use it. But this is also why I'm not putting stuff in the crystal brush. You don't have to have like super expensive brushes. I mean, you can, if you've watched the video on Friday where I talked to all the different painters, 8 different painters asked them 6 different questions, which is done really well. It's a really good video. I mean, people really enjoy it. I enjoyed doing it. It was a very long edit, but some people will say, oh, definitely you want to use really good brushes. But from the sense of a beginner, there's a benefit to using a brush that's not going to fall apart instantly, certainly. But, like Sam was telling me, he uses pretty inexpensive brushes most of the time. He does have a couple like nice ones here and there, but in a lot of his other brushes, he uses, cheaper stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting. Evil Eyeball says, Adam, I was in a different chat yesterday, a live chat, and it was not as good as yours. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I don't know what you're talking, and like what I don't want to know necessarily whose chat you didn't like. That's fine though. I appreciate it. I'm glad that people enjoy this one. Cheesy says, "Hey Adam, first time catching you live. Do you think GW will release new Tomb Kings?" I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they've kind of pulled, but they kind of shut down Tomb Kings. I think that they want to go as far as the Death faction is concerned. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they did just release this whole new kind of sub-faction of the dwarves, the Caradron overlords or whatever, the big flying dwarves. So, yeah, I don't know. They may. It'd be interesting to see. I've got a Death Army, but my Death Army is a little bit more generic, which kind of really means vampire counts, you know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess it depends on what sales look like. I'm hoping they do give some love to Death, though, honestly, because right now, everything in Death is old. Like, Destruction's got new stuff with Iron Jaws, you know, they did some stuff there. There's some really cool new sculpts, like that big Mega Boss Orc guy is great, and those Boar Rider dudes are great. And that big Maw Crusher monster thing is cool. And Order obviously has got a ton of new stuff since Age of Sigmar came out. Same with Chaos. I think Death is the only one that really, back me up, but let me know if I'm wrong, but I can't think of anything new sculpt-wise that came out for Death since Age of Sigmar. So everything is kind of older. Yeah, I can't think of anything new. So I hope that they do some of that soon. I would like to see some kind of cool new sculpts for Death. We've got some people talking about the different brush care tips, so you should check through this. Scroll back up through the chat a little bit to look at some of that stuff. Jammer says, "Did you hear about GW working with Scroll Builder for Age of Sigmar?" I did not. I know a lot of people like to use Scroll Builder. I'm really hoping that somebody comes up with like a website or whatever for Shadow War. I would really, or heck, if Games Workshop wants to make an app for it, just so you can sit there and build your lists, that'd be really nice. So I hope that either somebody comes up with something like Scroll Builder for Age of Sigmar. But for those of you who don't know, I think it's scrollbuilder.com. It's a place you can go and at least just like put in all your information for your lists. They have, like, you know, so you can be like, oh, I want to take 10 of these guys, and it will tell you the points and all that kind of jazz. And then you can just make up your list and then have it printed out, whatever. I think you can probably put it on your phone too if you want to. But yeah, so that kind of stuff, I think it's not a bad idea. But them working with those people, that's smart, you know. I mean, if they're going to do it, because these guys are going to make it stuff anyway. People, if they do it right, then all the Games Workshop has to do is maybe feed them some information, and then, you know, you're set. What else have we got here? I get the feeling that GW is mainly concentrating on Order and Chaos and lets the other factions slowly dwindle out. Gosh, I hope not. I mean, it would be... I think a bunch of people would be super unhappy. I can understand them letting Death kind of roll away a little bit. I mean, Nagash is cool and all that stuff, and that's great. I like Death. I like the Death Army a lot that I'm building. But Destruction, I mean, Orcs are pretty iconic, you know what I mean, within Games Workshop, whether it's going to be in fantasy or whether it's going to be in sci-fi. So yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But they are obviously very, very, very important, you know, impressed in it, or they're very interested in putting a ton of work into the Order faction and the Chaos faction. Those are the two biggies. Yeah, I will agree with you there. Let's see here. I would love to see Death get some more stuff. It'd probably persuade me to get into Age of Sigmar. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, a lot of the stuff, honestly, like the skeletons, I mean, a good deal of it, and I think maybe a partial reason why this is not happening, is because a good portion of the Death stuff did come out right at the end times. Like Nagash and the Spirit Hosts and a lot of that jazz kind of came out right near the end times, if I remember correctly. So the stuff, a lot of those sculpts are not that old. The just general, like, vampire count skeletons, though, they're getting a little long in the tooth. They're a little old. So yeah, you know, we'll see how it goes. Michael Strange says, restocked the bullet, I see. Yes, if you look, wrong, right there. So there was the one bottle of bullet bourbon that I had here, and then I bought a big bottle to take with me to Adepticon. And my friend who was staying in the hotel room with me, Eric, he also bought a little bottle, which is this one. So we drank a good portion. Well, we drank all of his little bottle and then a good portion of the big bottle. And it wasn't just us. There was also, Matt and some other people. But so then this has now actually just been transferred from the big bottle into the little bottle so that we could leave the big bottle in the recycling at AdeptiCon and not have to bring it back in the car. So that's why there's two, sort of not completely full bottles, but, it works. Yep. Darren says, sorry I'm late. I had to walk the dog. Well, I'm sure the dog appreciates it, so that's good. We're glad to see you. Adam, why do people say not to put your brushes in your mouth? The paint is non-toxic, and it always kept my tips tight. I think people think maybe this is that it's gross. Also, I'm not 100% sure. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm not 100% sure exactly how non-toxic the paints are. I mean, they say it's non-toxic, but maybe over a long period of time, if you're painting for a number of years, maybe not. I don't know. Sam does it generally. If you watched the video where I talked to the 8 different painters, Chris from Mini Wargaming, he mentioned that he used to do it, but doesn't seem to do it as much anymore. So yeah, I don't know. I don't do it at all. I generally, if I'm going to try to get a point, a lot of times when I'm holding a model in this hand, I will do it on my thumb a little bit. I'll just try to I'll just drag I've got the brushes loaded with some paint, and I'll just drag it on my thumb just to kind of get the tip right where I want it. And then by the end of painting, I'll have a whole bunch of paint stripes on the back of my thumb, and then I have to come upstairs and wash it off. But yeah, no, it works out. Anton says, aren't the Stormcast basically undead? Whoa, that's deep. No, I guess. I mean, well, that's a good question. They're kind of immortal. I don't know. Is immortal and undead the same thing? I don't know if it is. I mean, they're not immortal. Like, they can be killed, but I don't think they die of old age. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. As far as they're concerned, no. But I see where you're going with that. It kind of makes some sense. The new Orc and Troll Blood Bowl team looks great. I haven't seen that, I don't think. I mean, I've seen the orcs that came with the main game, and those models are awesome, frankly. But I have not. I've not seen the trolls, though, really. Six Gunner says, I believe the new Death faction is coming, but it's not the same Tomb Kings or Vampire counts. Yeah, I have a suspicion it would probably be either something completely new, kind of like, or almost completely new, like the Sky Dwarves, the Caradron Overlords, which I have a hard time saying, if I'm not looking at the word. So I could see them doing something like that and making a bunch of new sculpts and things like that. And I would, if I like them, I will be very happy. If I don't like them, then, because there are some sculpts in that game that I'm just kind of like I don't like any of those. Even though I have a Chaos Army, I don't like any of the Tzeentch stuff that they've done recently. It's technically very good, and I know that they're good sculpts, but they are aesthetically, to me, not pleasing. So I'm not going to buy those weird guys with the kind of like moon faces or the big bird, none of that stuff. But, they're well done. They're just not to my liking. So SC says the saliva eats away at the glue that holds your brush together, so eventually it's literally being held together by dried spit, which is fine, but the glue is better. So it's not so much that you don't want to put your brushes in your mouth because it's not good for you, it's because it's not good for your brushes. That makes probably more sense, frankly. Yeah, I could see that. Plus, like I said, I treat my brushes so poorly, I would not want to put them in my mouth because they are usually not good. So, definitely that. Yeah, and the Alaxtis says, I found putting brushes in your mouth will get it to a point on it, but destroy it soon after. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, too. I hadn't thought about that. So let's see here. As someone who's considering trying to get to AdeptiCon next year, what is a realistic price tag as far as a hotel, badge, etc.? How hard is it to get the hotel room? If you want to get a hotel room in the same facility that the actual convention's in, you want to do it pretty much as soon as they send out the email saying, hey, the hotel block is open, like really quickly. And I don't mean like sometime the next day or sometime the day after. I mean like within an hour or so. So they send out an email, and you can, you definitely want to do that. That being said, there are a couple of hotels nearby, too, that you can also stay in. I knew a bunch of people who were staying in hotels that were maybe half a mile away, and they would walk. It's as long as it's not raining, it's a nice walk. So yeah, that's a thing. I mean, like the badge is like, if you don't want a swag bag, it's $30. And like, try to compare that against Gen Con. Lord, Gen Con's I think $100 or $110 for a 4-day badge now, and you don't even get a swag bag. So yeah, AdeptiCon, the base is $30. I think the swag bag this year was $50, and there's also a couple levels up above that, like the VIG and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. It's well done. The hotel rooms were in the main facility at the Renaissance. They were maybe $120 or $130 a night, I think, if I remember correctly. So yeah, and then we just brought. I mean, honestly, we brought like bread and sandwich meat, and we brought our own sodas and all that kind of stuff. And because there's a fridge in the room, like a little dorm fridge. But yeah, we just didn't go out and eat all the time either. Like I went to one of the hotel bar or hotel restaurants once, but otherwise we just basically ate, in the room and stuff. And because we weren't there to eat, we were there to game, we were there to talk to people and have that kind of stuff. So yeah. Let me see here. Vampire Kings and Tomb Counts. Oh, there you go. I think mix those together. Have you seen the new WizKids pre-primed 2-figure kits? They are reminiscent of the old 3-figure Ral Partha, which showed your character leveling up. Yeah, got rockets. I did see some of those. I actually bought, when I was at Adepticon, there was I don't know if he was selling them early or what, but there was a retailer in the vendor area that was selling like a rack of those, which I don't know that they were supposed to be out yet, but maybe, I don't know. He had a rack of, like a spinner rack of those things, and I bought one of them. So basically what they are is WizKids has started producing a lot of these models because they already have the sculpts from doing like D&D models or something. I don't know where they get the sculpts from actually. And they're just unpainted, but they're kind of pre-primed, and they say they're primed with Vallejo, but I don't, whatever. I don't know how they're doing it. Anyway, it's like $4, and you usually get 2 figures. Unless it's a really big figure, then you get 1 figure for $4. So in the ones where it's 2 figures for $4, they're technically cheaper than Bones, but they're already pre-primed, which Bones is not. Bones is actually sometimes difficult to prime, from what some people say, and they're actually a little nicer plastic than Bones. And they come like a little, blister pack or whatever. And I bought one that was 2 female halfling rogues. And I've got an idea on using one of them actually for a display piece. So that's why I picked it up. And they were cool. But yeah, my local Caradron confirmed is the next Rec Age discount code. I'm sure that Matt will probably do that if that's the case. That's a good joke. Yeah, I picked up that thing, and I've got an idea for I picked up the models at Adepticon, but I've noticed my local store has just recently got a shipment of them too, and they've got them hanging on pegs and all that stuff. And there's a lot of neat models in there, so that's cool. Let me see here. So for the new Necromunda game, will GW release the rulebook for free? I would bet not. It will be so they've already released. Oops, sorry. They've already released the rules, not the rules, the army lists or whatever for basically all the other armies except for Space Marines and Imperial Guard and Orcs, because those come in the main rule book. But you can go download the document if you want to do Dark Eldar, Grey Knights, Genestealer Cults, Skitarii, a bunch of other stuff. The main booklet, just like with the Kill Team booklet was not free download. It was like $10. This will probably be, I don't know, maybe $20, $25. I'm not sure. But it is going to be a digital download. They may, down the road, sell it in, like in actual paper. And you'll be able to get it at stores. Because it's supposed to be, like I said, 120 pages. So they may do that too. But initially, I think it's going to be a digital download. But it probably won't be for free. What do we got here? I've never had a problem with paint sticking to bones, but the WizKids pre-primes are tempting and the price is comparable. They are geared more towards Pathfinder figures. Yeah, I mean, they've got a Pathfinder line, but then they also have a D&D line. I forget what they call it. And then I just read an article, or actually skimmed it, or I think actually my wife skimmed it and then told me about it, about They're also releasing the Star Trek ships, because they had the Attack Wing game, Star Trek Attack Wing. They're releasing a bunch of the Star Trek ships in that exact same thing, where they're already pre-primed but not painted, which is good because the paint jobs that they did on the Star Trek ships were kind of terrible. So if you want to buy them and use them in whatever kind of game you want, you can paint your own ships now. So that's kind of cool. It makes sense. People are interested in painting more and more these days, so why not just give them a bunch of figures? You've already got the molds, and once you figure out how to make them pre-primed or whatever, because there's a lot of different possibilities for the ways they could be doing it. They could be getting a priming agent on the inside of the molds that also acts as a mold release, and then they inject the plastic in there and you pop it out and you're done. Or they may be doing them all ahead of time and then spraying them in a giant booth, like in mass. I don't know. Depends, but yeah. Keenan says the Gen Con comparison was my main concern since I went to Gen Con last year. The hotel situation is impossible in Indianapolis. Absolutely. Gen Con, I would not be going to Gen Con this year if not for a friend of mine, Jason, he is the rabid hotel room finder guy, and we would not be going. There's a whole bunch of us that are going this year, and if it wasn't for him, just like a pit bull going after those hotel deals and everything like that, we just wouldn't be going because it's nearly impossible to get a hotel room downtown. If you want to, get a hotel room outside of the city and drive in every day and pay for parking and all that stuff, then it's not so hard. But then it's crazy expensive, probably just at least as expensive as it is staying in closer downtown. But without all the added benefit of being able to walk back to your hotel room and go to the bathroom if you need to or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's tough. Legionnaire says, hearing all about all the cons up north is one of the reasons I hate living in the southern United States. There is nothing between Atlanta and Dallas gaming con-wise. Yeah, no, and it's not just, it's really more of a Midwest sort of thing. There are some in the East Coast, the Northern East, but not as many as you would think. My wife and I were considering going to visit some friends in New York, and I thought, well, what we could do is kill two birds, one stone, and go to some big New York gaming convention at the same time, and then also visit our friends in New York as well. And I went and looked, and I could not find a big New York convention. Now, admittedly, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and because of the swell of nerddom, there are probably now a few more gaming conventions in the New York state area, but at the time, there was nothing. And I was used to living in Wisconsin where at any given year, there were 5 different local conventions, one of them generally being Gen Con back in the day, within the state. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why the different parts of the country are not into gaming as much. Like I said, sometimes I think it's because of the long winters, which is why we're a little bit more into it. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Cyberwolf says bones don't need painting or don't need priming. Paint on them directly. I've not had good luck with that myself. Just painting direct on the plastic, it almost always beads up for me. So that's why I always make sure to prime stuff. That being said, I have not had a problem priming bones, but to be fair, I've only ever primed bones with, I think, an airbrush. Well, or did I use the Krylon camouflage stuff? I don't know. I've heard other people say that when they prime bones with a rattle can, it stays sticky for a really long time, but I've never run into that. So I guess it depends on, what kind of paints you use. JP Got Rocket says that more terrain is coming for Neo Necromunda, aka Shadow War Armageddon. Yeah, it would make sense that they would produce more terrain. Terrain is very evergreen. Even if you don't play Shadow War, you can still really benefit from having a bunch of cool terrain. Maybe you play a completely different game. Maybe you play, Infinity or... what's that one? The Gates of Antares or whatever it's called from Warlord. All that terrain will work well in there as well. You may end up using it in regular 8th edition 40k when the time comes. It's very variable that way. And if you want to play Shadow War Armageddon, you do not have to use that terrain. You can use whatever you want, frankly. You want to have stuff with multiple levels and catwalks and things like that if you can. But there's tons and tons and tons of MDF stuff out there that works out really, really well for that. So, hi Adam, do you have a recommendation for varnish? I am a big fan of Tester's Dull Coat in the little tiny spray paint can, the little rattle can. That is my favorite because I like really flat matte. I do not like shiny models when I'm done. I like to keep them very, very flat and dull so that they look... Most things in life are not glossy, you know what I mean? So, like, people generally aren't glossy. If I'm a wizard with a cloak and a pointy hat, I shouldn't be glossy. I prefer the matte finish, and Dull Coat does the best matte, in my opinion. I don't know that you can get it in Europe, which is sort of a problem. You used to be able to, but there's evidently it's vaguely dangerous, and the European Union has been like, nope, sorry, we're not going to allow you to sell that in our area anymore because it's probably bad for you. There's other good varnishes out there. I've never tried the Army Painter, like Dull Coat. It's not called Dull Coat. They call it something else. Anti-Shine or something. I've never tried that. I've heard decent things about it, but the problem with most matte varnishes is that they're not really matte. They're like semi-gloss. And it also depends on how much you put on. If you put a lot of matte varnish on, even Dull Coat, it will get shiny. Too much of it, too thick of a coat of it, it just starts to get semi-gloss. So, but Tester's Dull Coat is my favorite if you can find it. Rusty McNally says, how do you light your main videos so that your glasses don't reflect loads of light? I have two light stands with lights on them and diffusers, and they're at... You can't see my other hand. They're not anywhere near this close, but they're basically both pointing at me from like a 45-degree angle. Like there's one over there, and there's one over there, and there's a certain distance, whatever. And you just kind of have to trial and error, and then eventually you find a position. And if I turn my head a little bit, you see them a little bit. Like right here, like I have a little light. This is actually just like a little desk lamp type thing over here, and I've put... I don't think I can... Well, I'm not going to move it. It's going to be a pain. But it's basically like kind of a desk lamp, and I made a diffuser out of typing paper. Well, copy paper, whatever. Printer paper. And I just slide it. Like if I take it off, now it's very bright, and that's not good. You don't want that. But it's just a tube of paper that I just taped, and then I just slide it over the top. And that makes a nice diffuser. There's a lot of cheap kind of DIY stuff you can do for your own lighting and your own, there's a lot of people who do a lot of things like that for when they're taking pictures that are miniatures. You don't need to go out and buy a fancy, pop-up light box thing and all that stuff. I did a video 3 years ago about making your own light box and showed you how to do it with some tissue paper and a cardboard box. So, that's kind of how it works out. Devin says that bones stays sticky with Rust-Oleum. Yeah, maybe there's something in the thing. Maybe there's something in there, like in the chemicals. Adam, when is the next Irregulars stream? So for those that you guys that don't know, I have a Patreon, which is a way that you guys can help support the channel if you're interested, and it's at patreon.com/tabletopminions. In that there are 3 levels, and the third level. The $4 a month people who really want to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. They are known as Uncle Adam's Irregulars. One of the benefits of being an Uncle Adam's Irregular is that I do a live show every month with just the Irregulars. So there's a lot fewer people there, and the questions don't go by as quick, so I can answer more questions and things like that. The next one will be coming up probably in a couple of weeks. I forget. I want to do them. I do one a month, and so I did the last one for March. I did the last one for March just before AdeptiCon. So I'll be doing another one probably somewhere around the 15th, 20th, somewhere in that area of April. So yeah, once per month. That's the plan. Ryan says, I found Winsor & Newton does a really good matte varnish. Winsor & Newton has a line. I don't know if they make it anymore, but it's probably the best brush-on varnish I've ever come across because it's really matte, which is hard with brush-on because it goes on very thick in comparison to, say, a spray varnish. Winsor & Newton Galleria, I believe, was the line that they used to have. Winsor & Newton Galleria matte varnish. I used to brush that onto models, and it worked really well. There's a trick you can do, especially with gaming models, where if you don't want to put on too much spray varnish, but you still are concerned about protecting the model, specifically like on the shoulder pads or the arms, like any place you're going to pick up the model a lot, where your fingers are going to touch it a lot, or where it might rub if you've got like a case and you're concerned about rubbing off paint. You can actually brush on like a good matte varnish in spots, and like that, and then spray the rest of it with a better, with like, say, something like Tester's Dull Coat, and that will help a lot, because then you've got thicker layers of varnish on, say, the shoulders or wherever it may rub, depending on the model. But then the rest of the place you can just kind of spray and do all over all that stuff. So yeah. Dicky says, relatively new to tabletop and interested in skirmish games. I would love recommendations for annual cons in the States. What are your favorites? Well, AdeptiCon is, honestly, if you're interested in tabletop wargaming, AdeptiCon is the best convention, in my opinion. It's in just outside of Chicago. It actually just happened last weekend. That's where I was last weekend. Just outside of Chicago in Schaumburg, Illinois. And this year it was probably almost 4,000 people over 4 days. And it's a great convention, and it's just wargaming. It's 40K, it's Malifaux, it's Age of Sigmar, it's Flames of War, Saga, Infinity, like anything you can think of that's tabletop wargaming related, you're going to find it there. And it's a great convention. Gen Con is amazing. I think all tabletop gamers of any stripe should eventually make a pilgrimage to Gen Con at least once, although it's kind of difficult these days because it's so humongous. Gen Con happens in August, and it's 60,000 people. In Indianapolis, Indiana, and it's a little crackers. Like I've been going since. One of the big reasons also that I'm going, besides the fact that I've got a good friend who's really good at finding the best hotels, the other reason is because it's the 50th anniversary, and I was at the 25th. So A, I'm old, but B, I'm just like, I was at the 25th. I need to go to the 50th. So. But back when it was the 25th, when it was still in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, there were 18,000 people showing up, which at the time we were like, wow, this is great. This convention, 18,000 people. In 2010, they had 30,000 people. And in 2015, they had 60,000 people. And they've had 60,000 people ever since. So from 2010 to 2015, they doubled their attendance. They were basically creeping along, and it was always like 18, 19, oh, wow, 20,000. And then it kind of flattened out for a while. And then in 2010, everything just kind of went and just shot up. So that's also a great convention. I've got a bunch of small local conventions near me, which are great, but that's not everywhere. Like we were talking about a little earlier, like the Midwest has got a lot of small conventions that are a lot of fun and have been going on for years and years and years, but not everybody. So yeah. The Nova Open is in the... Neef just said, yeah, it's in the D.C. and Virginia area. And then there's Las Vegas Open, which is in February. That one, both of those started more as tournaments, predominantly 40K tournaments. To be fair, AdeptiCon originally started 15 years ago as just basically a 40K tournament, and it just grew, and now it's all kinds of stuff. LVO, I don't know much about Nova, but LVO is starting to go that direction, where it's not just a tournament anymore. There's a lot more stuff going on. There's seminars, there's other games going on, there's demos, there's vendors. So one of these years I'm going to go to the Las Vegas Open. I'm hoping, but we'll see how it goes. Frankie Lee says the Winsor & Newton matte brush-on stuff is still available. I just saw it at Michael's when I was there 30 minutes ago. Excellent. So yeah, that stuff is nice. I like that stuff. I don't know how, like, my bottle is really old, so it may have gone weird at this point. So I don't know that it lasts forever. It is the line that they do for art students. It's not designed for miniature people. It's designed for art people, but it will work for our stuff. Double check to make sure that it says that it is like acid-free or non-yellowing or whatever. I have some models I've used it on that last time I looked at them, I don't remember them being yellowed. So for art people, they generally make everything, so it's pretty long-lasting. That stuff is generally designed because you're making a piece of artwork which may last for, hopefully, hundreds of years. They generally these days make that stuff to not be, if it's expensive stuff, if it's not cheapy stuff that you bought, at the hardware store, it probably won't yellow. So you got that going for it. Devin asked, do they do Frostgrave at Adepticon? Yes, they do. Osprey had a big booth there. They were showing off a bunch of their new stuff. They've got a new post-apocalyptic game, just the book, rules, instruction. They don't have any models or anything for it yet, but they have the book called Scrapers? Something like that. I didn't. I just kind of fingered through the rules a little bit, but that's about it. But they also had like a big event going on too, demos and all kinds of different stuff going on for Frostgrave, so that was pretty cool. MC1 Gamer asks, Adam, did you get to play any games at Adepticon? Sadly, I did not, MC1 Gamer. I was hoping to play a game with you, as it turned out, but then I forgot that I had a class that I went to, which I talked about a little bit before, and I had tons of other stuff. And I just told Mitch about this just recently. Earlier this week, I was looking around for something in my basement, and I realized I had left a good portion of my Age of Sigmar army at home. They were not in my bag. All of my Blight Kings, my General, and something else I had taken out to take pictures of, and so they were not in my bag, which I had taken to Adepticon because I wasn't paying close attention. So that's the thing, is that next year I may not sign up for any seminars. I mean, unless there's like a really cool one. But I think what I need to try to do next year is to try to focus on trying to play more stuff. I wanted to play a demo of Team Yankee, but I signed up for the demo and it was like 2:30 on Thursday. Well, we got there at noon, but we didn't get into our hotel room until 4. So I didn't want to be in a demo for several hours and then find out, okay, now our hotel room's open and now we know it was a dumb move on my part. I should not have signed up for any. I should either roll in Wednesday night or I should not sign up for anything that early on Wednesday or Thursday. Sorry. So yeah, I'm hoping to be able to do more gaming in the future there, and I'm hoping to actually bring the models that I'm hoping to bring and pay attention a little bit better next time. But yeah, Mitch and I were going to try to get together in the game, and there was a couple different people I wanted to try to get together in the game, but I just never quite made it happen, sadly. Yeah, Neef is right. They did Frostgrave, and Ash Barker was promoting the hell out of Frostgrave. Actually, I stood there and talked to Ash for a little while at the Frostgrave thing because he was kind of running an event there. So yeah, we chit-chatted for a while and everything, and he was all the terrain they were using, it was like dungeon crawl type terrain, and it was all painted stuff from, I think, Death Ray Designs, actually. Their MDF like dungeon walls. It was cool. And then at the end of the convention, they sold off all the painted kits. A good friend of mine who owns a store here in town bought one of them for, it's like a whole set that I think is retail normally about $200. He got it for $200, but it was all already built and painted. So they basically threw in the building and painted it for free. So that was kind of cool. But they sold them all. I think they sold off all those sets on Sunday. So now he's got some cool dungeon terrain for his store. Chris the Viola player says, do you have Gauge Master in America? Excellent terrain materials, 10 times as much as Games Workshop for a quarter of the price. Gauge Master? No, I've never heard of that. Is it something that's aimed more towards like the people who do train, like train, not terrain, but railroad stuff, like those types of things? I'm not sure. But yeah, I've never heard of Gauge Master around here. Woodland Scenics is a big one around, which is again generally more aimed at the railroad people. Lord Nagatron says, whatever happened to the GW game called Inquisitor? I don't know. There's a store about a half-hour drive away from here that has some of the old Inquisitor models still in stock. From what the Inquisitor game, the models were all 54 millimeters, so they were very large in comparison to what we're used to with our 28 millimeter. And I don't really know anything else about it, but I know it was kind of a skirmish game and the models were large. That's basically all I know about Inquisitor, but it's from the 90s, I believe. So yeah. Six Gunner asks, do you like dwarves? Do you plan on getting any of the Caradon Overlords? Caradron Overlords. I don't plan on getting any, I don't think. Well, no, probably not. If I did, it would probably be maybe one of the big cool boats, the flying boats, if I thought it was cool enough. And then I would have it eventually show up helping out maybe in my Stormcast army, which is my third army, which is not even built yet. I do like those flying boats. They're really cool looking. But otherwise, I'm not super... it's not that I'm against dwarves. I've just never been like a big dwarf fan. But I know people who are big dwarf fans and who are super excited. I just think, yeah, some of those bigger ships that they've got, I think, are kind of cool. So I could see... And just the very, nature of Age of Sigmar, being able to throw in stuff from several different factions, and put them all into one force. Oops, I just spilled a little coffee on my thumb. That's very interesting to me. So, yeah. But I don't know. We'll see. I hadn't really thought about it. I thought they looked cool, and I like the big boats. But I guess technically I could work maybe one of those boats. If it had like a lot of cool ranged attacks, I could see definitely trying to work it into my Stormcast army down the road. We'll see how that goes. Let's see here. MC1 Gamer says, Adam, I agree. Classes are awesome, but if you go to the biggest wargaming event, you have to play at least one game. Hope we get one of the next time. Yeah, same here. I agree. I mean, honestly, at this point now, when I go to... So I'm not a tournament player, which I've mentioned I don't know how many times before. So that's one of the reasons that I just don't sign up for any of the tournaments, because I just don't... I'm glad that other people like tournaments, and it's great. I don't like playing in them because I get weird. I don't know, like I start to play and then I like start to really care if I win, and I start to care less if I'm having a good time, and I don't want to be that guy. It's just my own personal problem. Other people can go to a tournament and have a great time and play or not play or whatever, and that's but for me, like, I'm generally not a competitive person, but if I'm at a tournament, I start to become one, and I don't want to be a jerk. So that's why I just like to play fun games and pick up games, you know, and then it keeps me happier, I guess. I don't know. That all being said, when I go to AdeptiCon, it's a very frequently a thing where I'm there, I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm talking to companies, hopefully, more and more. I'm talking to you guys. A friend of mine asked me about, like, well, how many people did you, like, you know, stop and shake hands with and talk to and stuff like that and everything like that. And I bet it was probably more than 100. Just kind of doing the math day by day, like how many people, you know, it was great to see people. I was in a bunch of, you know, selfies and all that stuff, and met all kinds of great people. And so that's what's taking up a big portion of my time when I'm at AdeptiCon, talking to companies, talking to vendors, talking to people, talking to all that kind of stuff. But I do definitely next year, and then also talking to the painters and doing that kind of video stuff and those things. Like my Saturday was mostly taken up with doing interviews and stuff. This week you're going to see an interview with Matt and Anton and John from Wreckage, which we did in the hotel room. Kind of like an interview from, like last year, but kind of the same, you know. But another guy, John, is a newer guy. He's a writer for them as well. And I also did an interview with Terry Latorco. She's that Terry girl, a little tiny wargamer woman, and she and her husband, Nathan Pullman, I interviewed the two of them up in the hotel room about being a wargaming couple and what's that like, you know, and how they make that work and stuff like that. So that one will be coming out as well. So yeah, Saturday I was pretty much shooting all day, so I didn't get a chance to do a lot of that stuff. But now, actually, let me back that up. I did actually get to play a game during AdeptiCon. If you follow me on social media stuff, Instagram and whatnot, Twitter, I did get to play on Friday night, I think. We played a game called Click Clack Lumberjack that I brought from home, which is not technically a miniatures game, although it does come with terrain. It comes with a plastic tree that's about maybe a foot tall, and it's kind of like Jenga, except that you have a little plastic axe. You're not just trying to take pieces out, you're trying to hit. You get to take 2 swipes at the tree and knock the pieces so that the bark falls off, but the log parts don't. Look it up. It's a fun game. It's good for kids, and it's also good for adults with some bourbon in them. So, you know, yeah, we had a fun time with that. So I did technically get to play a game at AdeptiCon. Yeah, I don't even think I got a good demo in. Like I said, I kept trying to get a Rune Wars demo, but they were constantly full, so that was interesting. Let me see. What else have we got here? I need to move this scrolly thing up. What else have we got? Cleveland has some great game stores. Oh, well, that's Midwest still. 12 Neef says, you should play Combat Patrol for 40k at the next AdeptCon, only 400 points. I used to play Combat Patrol, actually. Used to go to small tournaments next town over back in the, like 2011, 2012. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I would almost... Yeah, I don't know. It became a thing where I would get ticked at myself for losing because it was an actual, you know, tournament and it mattered in some fashion. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if I was to go to a tournament now, what it would be smart for me to do would be to actually just go at the first game, just say, okay, full disclosure, you win this game. Just mark it down as a win. You win. Now let's just have a fun game and that kind of stuff. And then next game, like, you win. Like, if I just knew there was no possibility for me to win because I had already given the win, like forfeited basically, and now I was just going to play like some games, that might be kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if they do start doing Shadow War tournaments maybe at AdeptiCon next year. Or by that point, Shadespire will be out too. Shadespire, so for those of you that didn't see some of the announcements, Shadespire is an Age of Sigmar-based kind of hybrid sort of board game. Okay, basically it's on a hex board, and you have cards kind of like you do in X-Wing. And you have your models, which are unpainted, but they're in like colored plastic, but you can paint them if you want to, certainly. So you have these small groups. The first groups that are coming out are going to be, obviously, Stormcast versus Bloodbound, but it is designed to be a competitive game. It's designed to play 3 games, best of 3, in like 40 minutes. So they're quick kind of like arena combat, almost gladiatorial, quick kind of combat, and stuff, but with combos and cards and things like that. And I've talked to a couple different people. Like when I talked to Terry and Nathan, like I said, I interviewed the two of them. They both at one point used to each, I think, work at Games Workshop stores or something. So they've been Games Workshop people for a long time, or they had been, but they've stayed away from Games Workshop for years now. They've been mainly playing like War Machine and Malifaux and things like that. They've been away from Games Workshop for quite some time, but they were there for that thing, and they got to play some of the demos on Wednesday night. And Terry said, this may be the game that brings us back to Games Workshop, because they were really impressed. I mean, it's not a miniatures game in the way we generally think of it. It's a little bit more gateway, but it's designed to be quick and competitive and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of, like I said, tournaments and things like that we'll start seeing. That game, like I said, Shadespire. The full name is Warhammer Undergrounds. Or Warhammer Underground, Shadespire. And I believe that it's supposed to be coming out in the 4th quarter of this year. So not for some time. But they showed off like a bunch of pre-release stuff and things like that at AdeptiCon, and people got to play. So that's cool. Gloomdready Gaming. Hello. Just popping in to say hi quickly. We'll have to watch the recording while painting later. Well, that's one of the reasons why I do it, is so that people can listen and paint. I'm always trying to help that kind of stuff like that. Did you get a starter box for Rune Wars? I picked it up and it looks promising, but I worry it's going to be another completionist game requiring every release to do well. Looks fun, though. I did get a copy of the box in my swag bag. I guess I hadn't thought about that because I haven't really opened it and looked through it, but I do wonder if it's going to have that sort of same X-Wing scenario because one of the issues with X-Wing's a great game. It's a great gateway game, brings people in and all that stuff. The problem is that, and as they've gone on, when you buy a specific ship, it comes with X amount of cards in it, which don't just relate to that ship. There are some cards that you can use in any ship. So there's special abilities or special types of missiles or torpedoes or whatever. So the trick is that if you want to be competitive and play competitively, you need to keep buying. Every time they release new waves of ships, they release more and more powerful cards. So if you want to fly this ship from Wave 3, there's a card in Wave 7 that with that ship is really super killer and it's great. Okay, well that means that you have to keep constantly, even though you like this Wave 3 ship, to get this special power card, I'm way off outside the camera, to get this special power card, you have to buy this particular ship from Wave 7. Like, there's a card of C-3PO. Okay, there's a crew member, C-3PO, who gives you this special benefit, which is amazing. He only comes, at least, maybe they've changed it, but originally he only came in that really big Tantive 4 ship that they sold for like $80 that's like a foot and a half long. That's the only place to get the C-3PO card. At least it was. Like I said, I haven't bought anything new for them in a while because I'm not competitive. I just like to play for fun. But the people who are competitive have to keep buying the new waves so that they can get the new cards. They may not even use this ship, but you buy the ship because you want the card. And I'm hoping that Rune Wars doesn't go that way. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know a lot about it. But that is a concern. I can understand that, definitely. Let's see here. I like your philosophy of winning/playing, Adam. Competition often brings out the worst in people. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I played a 40K, or not a 40K, sorry. I played an X-Wing tournament probably 4 years ago. And it was like a $5 entry fee. And it was basically for, those trinkets that they kind of give you, either the promo cards or the little plastic, markers instead of the cardboard ones that come in the base game. But I was like not winning, and it was ticking me off because I wasn't going to win that stuff, which was like, stuff that you could buy on eBay for probably about, $5 or whatever, maybe more. But it was just annoying me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. But when you're in a tournament, to me, it's like, well, now it sort of feels like it matters, and then I get weird. And I'm trying to fix that. But one of the ways to easily fix it is just to not play in tournaments. I like to just play pickup games and games for fun. I like to think that games should be fun. I know it's weird, but that's my opinion. So. What else have I got here? Ralph says that Shadespire, from what I see, is definitely a gateway game. Yeah, I mean, just from the stuff that I've seen, like on the Warhammer community site. Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be very interesting to see. And it seems to be to be perfectly honest, it seems like they're trying to target the X-Wing crowd a little bit. Because they're like, hey, we're not going to paint them for you. But you don't really have to paint them. They're in colored plastic. That's fine. And here's a bunch of cool cards and combos and all that kind of stuff. Like at my local store, a lot of people who play X-Wing are also people who have only ever played Magic. Like they'll play some board games, but almost none of those guys are miniatures players. The guys who are Magic players who got into X-Wing, this is the only miniatures game they've ever played because they don't have to paint it, they don't have to build it, any of that jazz. It'll be interesting to see if they do the same type of thing like that, kind of, with Shadespire. It's interesting to see Games Workshop chasing after X-Wing a little bit. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's kind of where it is these days. X-Wing is selling really, really well. Curious, what is the difference between playing competitively in a tourney setting versus playing competitively? Oh, let's scroll off the top. Let me back up just a touch, as I kind of want to answer that. What is the difference between playing competitively in a tourney setting versus playing competitively in a casual game? I mean, in each scenario, you're trying to win. How do you keep the big, mean competition player at bay in casual games? I think that casual games shouldn't be super competitive. I think they should be more, personally myself, I like just, normal casual games to be more about like, the storyline, more about like what's happening, like the cool, crazy cinematic things, like, oh, this guy's gonna die if he doesn't roll double sixes, and then he rolls double sixes, that kind of stuff. That's the thing and again, the having fun. When I play a normal pickup game with a friend or anything like that, I am not there to crush people. I am not there to win at all costs. I'm there just to have a good time with that person and play and have a good time. And your mileage may vary, absolutely. I'm not saying that other people's journeys are any better or worse. I'm just saying that that's, for me, what I enjoy most about playing the games is having a good time. Like, I am generally in a normal game not that sad if I lose, because if I had a good time, then that was the whole point. So I hit the wall with painting my, I think it says stuff, but it's spelled stall. I think I need a break or a good motivation to start having fun again. Motivation, how to keep painting. One of the big things I do is I like to listen to audiobooks while I paint. So if it's a good enough audiobook, I want to go back downstairs and listen to the audiobook, and I don't want to just sit here sit in the living room and listen to an audiobook. That would be weird. So I need to be doing something while I'm listening to the audiobook. Like if I was just going to sit and read a book, that's one thing, because it's visual, you're looking at it. But if you're having someone, talk into your ears and tell you the story, then I should be doing something else with my hands. At least that's my personal opinion. Which that, for me, sometimes there's times when I'm not super interested in painting, but I'm super interested in hearing the next chapter. So those things go together, and that's the way it works. Kind of taking things like that. Like if you're a person who can listen to Netflix but not necessarily watch, there are people out there who run through entire TV series, because they're listening to it while they're painting. I can't do that because I'm a very visual person, so if I'm watching television, I won't be able to paint. It just won't happen. I don't care if I've seen this movie 10 times, I won't be able to paint, because at some point I'll just start watching the movie and then my brush will go dry. So yeah, for me, audiobooks, podcasts, that kind of stuff, that's a big motivator for me. And then just wanting to get things done, that's a big deal too. bunch of people saying that they're confused by the concept that games should be fun. No, it's true. It's games should be fun. I should put it on a shirt. Daniel Beam says, is there Clone Wars stuff in X-Wing? I've seen an Arc Fighter and a Vulture droid, but nothing else. Oh, I haven't seen the Vulture droid. I did see the Arc Fighter. And the Arc Fighter, I remember being from Clone Wars era stuff, but I don't know if... Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't seen the Vulture Fighter in the... I've seen Vulture Fighters back in the old Star Wars miniatures game, which was made by WizKids and was a totally... Not WizKids, Wizards of the Coast, and was a totally different thing, but I haven't seen any of I haven't seen it for the new Star Wars X-Wing. There's a lot of people saying that the power creep in X-Wing has caused them to stop playing. And if you're interested in tournaments and being competitive like that, then yeah, that is definitely a thing. If you want to play with your friends, and if they're not super into being super soul-crushingly competitive, it's still a really fun game to play with people. If you don't want to go down that road. But if you've got like 4 people who love to play, and amongst each other, you guys get together in your basement or your garage and play and have some beverages, and there's like one of them who's constantly trying to crush, and that's the only thing they want to do, that becomes problematic. But if everybody's like basically cool and having a good time playing games, then it's a great game still, don't get me wrong. Yesterday I was playing a Hobbit Lord of the Rings tournament where the prizes were... Dang it. I gotta start reading a little bit further down the page. Where the prizes were drawn among the players. I find it's an effective way to keep away the hardcore win-at-any cost players. Yeah, so a friend of mine and I, back, I don't know, 4 years ago, we were going to start a 40K tournament series. We only did about 2 or 3 of them ever. But we were starting to do these 40K tournament series, but we wanted them to not... We weren't calling them tournaments, we were calling them gaming events. So you would get together, and it would be like a tournament. You'd play against people and whatnot and everything like that. And if you won, if you were the big winner, you got a plaque that had your name on it. Well, it didn't have your name on it. It had said that you were first place. And if you got second place, you got a second place plaque. And these were like $10 plaques, very inexpensive plaques. But... then we had a whole bunch of door prizes, which were basically, if you could come to the event and lose terribly all 3 rounds, but you could still end up winning like a battle foam bag or something like that, because we were doing a giveaway. So the prizes were actually door prizes, giveaway, raffle, whatever you want to call it. But, we still said, oh yeah, by the way, you won the tournament. Great. Here's your plaque. It was $10. Have a nice time. That guy over there who lost all the time, he won a $200 bag. So, you know what I mean? Like, that was what we were trying to do. And it worked out pretty well, but then all of a sudden, 7th edition got real squirrely. Well, this is actually, I take that back. This is still 6th edition. Even 6th edition started getting real squirrely, and it was very difficult for tournament organizers. And so we kind of just sort of, and in this area for a while, actually 40K sort of really started to dwindle. So we sort of stopped. Though I still have a ton of the terrain in my basement. But yeah, that was our plan, was that it was more about come, show up, play, have some games. Maybe you'll be the big winner, which means you'll get a plaque. Or maybe you'll win like a really cool prize just because it's random. So that was kind of the thing we were into. So let's see here. What else have we got? Someone else agrees that audiobooks are a great motivator. I agree. The Black Library audiobooks are great to listen to while painting. I've not listened to any of those. I've listened, well, not while painting. I've listened to some of them. We listened to a couple of them in the car several years back on the way to Gen Con, because it's like a 6.5-hour drive for us. So we listened to some of those once, but I've not listened to any at home while I'm painting. They seem to be almost a little bit more like audio plays. Like there's like sound effects and people doing lots of voices and different actors and things like that. So they're interesting, but I kind of like just regular audiobooks a little bit better. I think, well, at least for painting, I think for me, I think it would be easier. What else have we got? Smith Jones says, how do you feel about the Shadow War release? I said, as I was saying earlier, I'm super excited, really looking forward to it. I like skirmish games, and the fact that I can now play a really small kind of skirmish game with 40K miniatures, which are some of my favorite miniatures in the world. I mean, I love Age of Sigmar as well. That's a great game. I like Shadow War a lot now too, just from what I've been watching and just from what I know of old Necromunda, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. What else have we got here? Clone Wars stuff could easily pop up in Star Wars, or sorry, X-Wing, I think. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, like back when Wizards of the Coast was doing the Star Wars miniatures game, they had to really, because they came out with new sets constantly. So originally the first set was like, A New Hope, and then they were like, oh, and here's some Clone Wars stuff, because that, movies had just kind of come out. And then they were like, oh, and here's this, and then eventually they were just like, here's a bunch of stuff from the novels, I guess, because they started running out of things to make. With X-Wing, if you take all the X-Wing ships and put them out there, there've maybe been, I don't know, 100, 120 ships put out there. But when you're doing a random pack game, kind of like HeroClix, where you buy there's 60 new figures in every one of those releases. They had to come up with just tons and tons and tons of stuff that was mentioned once in a movie somewhere or whatever. Well, we've got a figure for that guy now, so it's interesting. So what else have we got here? Talking about the Humble Bundle for a bunch of the Horus Heresy stuff. I thought that was really cool that Games Workshop got involved with that, or Black Library technically. What else have we got? Humble Bundle Horus Heresy purchased, $15 commitment level. See, yeah, and then you get a whole bunch of, from what I understand, you get a bunch of audiobooks and other stuff and everything like that. So that's cool. Definitely. What else have we got here? Humble Bundle. All right, so I think we're good on that. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about Adepticon, since that's what I teased in the graphic that everybody saw, like an hour and a half ago, when I first posted that I was going to be doing a live show. We got to Adepticon, like I said, right around noon on Thursday last week, and not this week, but last week, the 23rd, and we got there around noon. And in the past, we've gotten there at noon, and they've said, okay, well, check-in's at 4, so we'll. Oh wait, hang on, here's your keys. They've just done it that way, like the last 2 or 3 years. This year, that did not happen. So we got there, and they said, well, we'll give you a call or a text or whatever when your room is ready. And they didn't call. So we were hanging out in the main. There's this main hallway that kind of goes from where the restaurants and the first and the registration area is for the actual hotel. And then you walk down this long hallway, and there's ballrooms that go off that hallway that go into there was a room for Saga, there was a room for Age of Sigmar, there was a room for 40K. No, I take that back. It was just the Age of Sigmar one, but the Games Workshop Warhammer TV Twitch live streaming area was in that same room. It was all brightly lit and all that stuff just in that one corner, because a lot of those rooms are dark. But there was a bunch of stuff in there, and then out in the hallway, that hallway where everybody had to kind of walk back and forth, that's where there were some demo areas, and the guys from Wreckage, Matt and Anton and all their volunteers, they had a table out there, and they were running Wreckage demos. So we kind of hung out by them and chit-chatted and waited. And eventually I went back to the front desk at 4 o'clock, and I was like, any news in our room when it's going to be ready? And then they're like, oh yeah, here you go. So they never bothered to call, which, they're busy. So, they gave, so we got our rooms, went upstairs, dumped all our stuff up there. And then, I don't know, it was, what did we do Thursday night? It was just basically talking to people. Oh, I do remember. All right, so a friend of mine was playing actually in an X-Wing tournament, so we were hanging out in one of the big rooms, huge, more trade show type, areas. But that's where they were having the X-Wing tournament. It was a big X-Wing tournament. And we, so we were all waiting for him to get done, and it was a whole bunch of us, and we were sitting kind of off away, but some tables that weren't currently being used. And we were, we'd met up with a whole bunch of people we hadn't seen since last AdeptiCon, people who live, down in Tennessee, Kentucky area, those areas and whatnot. And we had some cocktails, and it was a good time, and caught up with a lot of friends and stuff like that. That's what's great about AdeptiCon is you just, there's people that I only see at AdeptiCon, but now we're friends on Facebook and stuff like that, but we see each other once a year at AdeptiCon. It's a bit like a homecoming, so that's really fun. Then Friday, I did, Friday I think was, if I remember correctly, Friday was when I had my seminar, which was really nice too. It was, like I said, it was a really good seminar. So yeah. Oh, the chat's moving again. Let me see here. What else have we got? Comes with the first 15 books, and this is more about the Humble Bundle. Malik asks, okay, Adam, what's your preference between Lord of the Rings / Hobbit or Star Wars? Talking about the movies here. That's a good one. I'm going to say probably Star Wars wins a bit because I saw the original in the theater back in 1978 when I was a little kid, and so I've seen all of them in the theater. I saw all of the, I saw all the Lord of the Rings movies in the theater. We never watched all the Hobbits. We only saw the first Hobbit movie, and I think we rented it. We didn't even see the second or third. Lord of the Rings movies I like a lot. But I think that Star Wars is maybe just a little bit more up my alley. So there's that. No Black Library stuff on Audible. Makes me sad. I did find Battletech audiobooks on iTunes, though. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I do wish that the Black Library stuff would be on Audible, because I'm not a member of Audible anymore, but I was for quite some time, and I'm probably going to go back. But yeah, they Games Workshop kind of wants to keep that to themselves, but it makes it a little bit harder. Audible's a nice system to be able to listen. Audible is it's a great place to get audiobooks, and there's like an app, so it's really easy to listen to them, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Chris asks, did you play Giga Robo? Giga Robo actually I did not, but I did see Giga Robo. They were right next to the Wreckage demo area in that big long hallway where we hung out most of Thursday while we were waiting for our room. It seems to be kind of a vaguely sort of like 70s, 80s kind of like anime giant robot kind of board gamey sort of thing. There's like buildings and stuff like that. I know some of the guys from Giga Robo are friends with some of the guys from Wreckage, but I didn't get a chance to play a demo of that. So, but I saw it there. It was cool looking if you're into that kind of stuff. Big robots and gigas, I guess. I don't know what a gig is, but yeah. So good looking artwork, and it was interesting. There was a bunch of different games in that hallway that were doing demos. So there was Wreckage, there was Giga Robo. There was another one that they didn't have very good signage, and I knew who they were. And then down the other end, as you were getting closer to like where the actual big main vendor hall, and at the other end of that hallway, there was a game called Broken Contract, which is also post-apocalyptic. So already I'm like, oh, that's up my alley to some degree. It's a little bit more board game-ish or really tiny skirmish, but it's kind of interesting looking. So, and they're based out of the Milwaukee area, strangely enough. So, yeah, I didn't get a chance. They kind of gave me just a quick, elevator pitch, showed me kind of like what the game's about and stuff, and it looked really kind of cool. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to do a demo. Although on Sunday they gave me not a regular copy of the game, but what they call a press copy. So it's like it's not as nice of a box, but it's the parts and stuff like that, and then also like a press release, slipped in there and all that stuff. So yeah, I had kind of a nice conversation with those guys and everything. So I'm kind of interested in looking at the miniatures and kind of checking it out. And I'm hoping, honestly, that they'll come and be vendors at TMX, at the Tabletop Minions Expo, because they're in Milwaukee, which is like 90 miles away. So it's not too difficult of a trip. So yeah, definitely. So let's see here. What else? I've got some questions. Why doesn't that work when I click on it? That's annoying. Adam, came in late. What are your thoughts on the wargaming scene after your trip to Adepticon? Is there room for growth in the newer companies, or is it becoming oversaturated with indie mini games? I don't think that the indie mini games can ever oversaturate anything, because they've always got a real uphill battle against the like the big companies like Games Workshop and Privateer Press and all that kind of stuff. That all being said, the indie gaming companies also don't, like the people who want to move away from the big things because they're unhappy with Games Workshop, or they don't like the way that War Machine's been going, or whatever. They have a tendency to kind of trickle down and move into these other things. And if the indie games are smart, they generally stick to skirmish rules. Now the reason for that is because if you're running a skirmish game where your force only needs to be 5 or 6 figures and your opponent's force only needs to be 5 or 6 figures, there are plenty of people out there who might play 40K or who might play Age of Sigmar, but also want to play your game because it's real quick and easy to paint up, or it's not a big investment, that kind of stuff. Wreckage is a great miniatures game. That is just something. It's very few models, and you can play it that way. Like it's not hard to pick up any kind of skirmish game and add it to your repertoire. So the indie ones I don't think are really hurting anything at all. If anything, I think that the fact that all of the industry is kind of growing kind of brings everybody up, so that's cool. Yeah, I think that's the way it's working. I think the wargaming industry is doing great, and there's new technologies coming along, and it's allowing smaller companies to be able to do more with less money, and it's great that way. So Daniel says, you do your chaos stuff in ash bases, right? I know you use baking soda, but what paints do you use for ash? Generally, I use like a medium. So like once I've done the texture with all that, I will then do like a medium gray that'll cover everything with. Dawnstone, maybe I want to say, if you have to have a GW color, but like a medium gray, not too dark, not too light. And then after that's completely dry, I usually do like a black wash, or depending, I sometimes will do a brown wash. But then I'll actually wet blend a little bit of black wash into it, and go back and forth, so it's a little bit more variated. And then after that's completely dried, then I come back with a lighter gray. And then I do some dry brushing, and then that's, if I really want to get crazy, maybe I might do like a white dry brush in just the most highest raised parts or whatever, if there's some rubble or something like that, just to give it a little bit more contrast. But that's about it. It's really simple. It's just basically medium gray, wash it in either black or brown, depending on what you like best, then come back with a lighter gray, dry brush, and then maybe just touch up the highest bits with a little bit of white, and that's about it. So yeah. What else have we got? Yes, Giga Robo. It was next to Wreckage in the main that main kind of hallway between the hotel and the convention center. Star Hobbit Ring Lord Wars. Now there you go. That's a mashup. I could see that. Absolutely. How much did you talk to the mini wargaming guy? Which one, Chris? If you're talking about Chris, because I did a video, for those of you who haven't seen the video that came out on Friday, I talked to 8 different pro painters. One of them was mini wargaming Chris. I talked to him probably for, I don't know, because in that thing I probably filmed maybe 6-7 minutes with him, but then we talked for a while before and after as well, because I've known Chris for quite a while. He was at AdeptiCon last year. He and Miranda, a Wargamer girl, the three of us used to do a live show once a month on like a Thursday night. We would talk about movies, but we were, from like a Wargamer aspect. Nobody watched that, as it turned out. Well, not nobody, but we were very bad at staying on subject. And so we would just sort of yammer on at each other for a couple of hours, and people kind of didn't care, I guess, because we were sort of not great with our overall structure. So yeah, but anyway, so he's a good guy. I like Chris. I talked to Dave a bit. I talked to Quirk. I talked to Matt, because they were all there. They had a booth this year. Mini Wargaming had a booth at AdeptiCon, and so I even talked to Steve at one point. I think the only guy I didn't get a chance to talk to was probably Josh, but I talked to a bunch of those guys. And Dave and Quirk were both at Valhalla last year, so I hung out quite a bit with them. So it was good to see them again, and I'm going to see them again at Valhalla this October. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So what else have we got here? Let's see. It allows you to split your money on different games. Yeah, I mean, skirmish games are great for that, because, and I think one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to Shadow War Armageddon is because it will allow me, for relatively little amount of money, to be able to kind of scratch that gamer ADD itch. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, I want to have an orc army, because I've never really done orcs before. Oh, I also want to have Genestealer cults, because the models are amazing looking. Well, for very little money, you can get both of those going on in a game like, Shadow War. Even in Kill Team, it's not bad. You can do it in Kill Team as well, but it's even, I think, just a little bit easier in Shadow War. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. What else have we got here? We're getting just about to the end. I am creating my own fantasy war game. Can you give me a piece of advice? I really want to do my best. I would tell you to make it skirmish. Make it so that you don't really have a lot of models. If I was going to make a fantasy war game, this is not a way to get rich, but you really shouldn't ever think about trying to get rich if you get into gaming at all, in my opinion. I would write a war game, a skirmish level fantasy war game, so that's maybe 8 to 10 models tops in your entire war band, and then don't bother making models. Don't bother getting sculptors and going through all that stuff. It's super crazy expensive and everything. Just make a war game that will work with whatever types of figures people want to use. You know, if people want to use a mixture of Reaper Bones and Lord of the Rings figures, let them do it. You write up the rules, make it a free PDF, not a free PDF, make it a PDF they got to buy for relatively inexpensive, maybe $10, and then just go to town. If it takes off and it's gangbusters and your rules are amazing and everyone loves them and everything like that, and they start to sell like crazy, then maybe you want to start thinking about making some models. But don't decide I'm going to make this war game and do a whole thing and I'm going to start trying to find sculptors and go through all that stuff. There's plenty of fantasy figures out there already, and if you make a game that allows people to use the fantasy figures that they like and that they don't need too many of them, it'll help a lot. So what else have we got here? Adam, I really liked your nerding kit video. Already putting together mine since I have to stay at my parents' place for a while. Any other suggestions about essential tools to put in there? If you're going to be doing some converting and things like that, I would definitely try to bring along some green stuff. If you want to be doing some texturing, I'd tell you to bring along some liquid green stuff, and then also bring along a crappy brush and go from there. So, yeah. That's, I think, probably the best way to go. The portable nerding kit's great when you're having to travel, or even if you're just going, like I said, on Friday nights we have a tendency to go over to some friends' houses and hang out, and we go to dinner, and then we come back and sit at their house and talk and whatever. And there are times when I just bring that kit with me because I got stuff to work on, and I can talk and I can talk and work on models at the same time. Frequently, sometimes my wife will bring some knitting because the people's house we go to, she's also a knitter as well. So we just sit around and kind of talk and have a good time, and we don't need to completely make perfect eye contact at all the times. We can be working on stuff. So yeah. What else have we got? I have 2 words left. Rail Wars. I don't know what that means. Sorry. There's some talk here about the Starship Troopers game. I bought some of the models when they were like on super closeout. They're okay. And I think someone just mentioned this, the bugs were way better than the humans in that game, sculpt-wise. They looked a lot better. The humans did not look that great, but the bugs looked really actually pretty good. They looked a lot like in the movie, so that was cool. What else have we got? What's your opinion on 6mm wargaming? 6mm wargaming. So 6mm, from what I understand, is generally more along the lines of something like BattleTech or those kind of things, and it's a cool scale. Depends. It can be a lot easier to paint. You're playing pretty small little tanks and mechs and stuff like that, so it's not super hard to paint because there's not a lot of detail there to begin with. But yeah, other than BattleTech, and I've really not played a lot of 6mm stuff that I know of. So, but yeah. J Tick says, "Man, I am late to the party." Yes, I kind of pulled an audible this week and did a thing, and I talked about you a little bit there, sir, and about your amazing hotel finding deals for Gen Con. But it's good to see you here at the show. Let's see here. Malik says, "I'm working with a woodcutter who has a laser cutting machine here in Minnesota. We're designing a portable paint station. It's coming along nicely." That sounds kind of fun. Man, I wish I had a laser cutter, but like a really good laser cutter that can cut through decent wood, they can be really expensive. I've got a friend who's got a laser cutter that he paid like $1,500 for, and I think it can cut through Cool Whip and air, and that's about it. It's not good for much else. Like I was like, when he said he was getting a laser cutter, I'm like, oh sweet, we can do some cool stuff with acrylic. He's like, yeah, I can't. It's not powerful enough to go through acrylic. And I'm like, well, what about MDF? He's like, nah, not really. We've found that it can cut through cardboard, like chipboard. I haven't really figured out a good idea for that yet. So yeah, I don't know why he bought it. He uses it more for cutting really thin, like veneers and laminates for like woodworking, but it's not powerful enough to cut through like thicker stuff, which is a bummer for me, but probably fine for him. So absolutely. Let's see here. What else have we got? We're getting just about to the end here. Are you going to do your next show on Easter? That's a good question. No, I am not. The next show, I'm going to bring out the old calendar here. The next show will be actually next weekend. See, like I said before, you might have missed it earlier on the thing. Last week was when the show was supposed to happen, but I was at AdeptiCon and the hotel internet was no good. So I'm doing this one now kind of like, because I should have done it last Sunday. But I'm not going to throw off the schedule, because if I throw off the overall schedule, it will screw up Gen Con and it'll screw up the Tabletop Minions Expo. So actually next week, the 9th, you can't see anything here, but it's the dot for my calendar, the 9th is when the next show is. So a week from today will be the next show, and then there will be 2 weeks until the show after that, which is it's the every other Sunday show. So actually I'll be, the 16th, I guess, is Easter according to this. We'll be jumping over Easter, like a bunny. That's the best joke I got for that. Sorry. Phil Morris says, "Will the laser cut Wisconsin cheese?" Not a good Wisconsin cheese, no. Like Kraft Singles, which is barely cheese. It'll cut that, but not like a good 10-year extra sharp cheddar. Probably not. So yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much where we're at, and I appreciate people showing up. Kind of, because I actually, like this morning, well, that's not true. Last night I decided, yeah, I'm going to do a live show tomorrow. And then I got up this morning and then took a shower and then made the thumbnail, which is actually just a photo of, this was cool. This was what they called it's called a challenge coin. And that was an add-on you could put to your badge. You could pay extra and then get this challenge coin, which was made by Games and Gears. And it's got a skull on this side, and on the other side it's got an eagle. And then it's numbered. They're all custom numbered or whatever. And so this was the AdeptiCon 15, because this is the 15th AdeptiCon. They put them in there by the number of AdeptiCons, not the date. This is the AdeptiCon 15, what do you call it there, the challenge coin. And so that's what I used for the thumbnail for this particular episode. So I came up with that real quick this morning, and then here we are. But now it's over. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys have had a good time. I hope I've answered some questions, and I'm glad to have seen as many people show up as they did. So I appreciate it. And I'll see you, like I said, I'll see you next Sunday for the back on the normal schedule every other Sunday show. And I'm not sure what the thing will be about, but I'll figure it out hopefully before then. So anyway, I hope you had a good time, and we will see you guys later on.